He is an author, playwright, screenwriter, but most importantly tonight, author of one of the 25 World Book Night titles, A Life Like Other People's. Reading from that book, please welcome Alan Bennett.
I tried to find somewhere in the book where there were jokes, but there aren't really very many jokes in it. And it's about the end of my mother's life when she was in an old people's home in Weston-super-Mare. That there is something not right around homes for the elderly is evident in the language associated with them. It's swampy, terms do not quite fit and categories start to slip. A home is not a home, but neither is it a hospital, nor yet a hotel. What do we call the old people who live and die there? Are they residents, patients, inmates? No word altogether suits. And who looks after them? Nurses? Not really, since very few of them are qualified. As Mum herself pointed out early in her residency, they're not nurses, these. Most of them are just lassies. And not knowing what to call them makes getting hold of one difficult, not least for the residents. In a hospital, it would be nurse. Here, it tends to be hello, hello, which said to nobody in particular, and sometimes to an empty room, already sounds deranged. Of course, calling them by name could be the answer, but though the staff all wear their name tags, names are what these lost women are not good at. Not being good at names, one of the things that has brought them here in the first place. And what do I call them? A visitor. Even if I cared for the word caring, carer is not a word you can call down a corridor. As it is, and feeling like one of those old-fashioned gentlemen who call every policeman officer, I settle for nurse, remembering at the same time Mrs. Catchpole, Alan Bates's mother-in-law, who, incarcerated in the geriatric ward at the Royal Free, remarked bitterly of one such nurse whom she called Bouncing Betty. She's not as highly qualified as she makes out, and she has very hard hands. These blurred classifications, a home that is not a home, a nurse who is not a nurse, arise because, strictly speaking, the people in homes are not ill. It is not sickness that has brought them here, so much as incurable incompetence. They are not dying, they are just incapable of living, though capable of being long-lived nevertheless. My mother lives like this for 15 years. I'm too cold to turn it over. I sit in the upstairs room and hold my mother's hand, the skin now just a translucent sheath for the bones, and a hand anyone who comes into the room is free to take and hold, as Mum will not mind or even notice. One of the maids now erupts into the room and seizes Mum's hand, stroking her face and kissing her lavishly. Isn't she a love? Aren't you a love? Aren't we pretty this morning? Who's going to give me a kiss? The dialogue makes me wince, and the delivery of it seems so much bad acting, better directed at a parrot or a Pekingese. But irritatingly, Mum seems to enjoy it, this grotesque performance eliciting far more of a response than my more tasteful contribution. But then taste has always been my handicap, and so it is here, when in this sponged and squeegeed bedroom, with an audience of indifferent old women, I do not care to unbend, call my mother chick, fetch my face close to hers, and tell her or shout at her how much I love her, and how we all love her, and what a treasure she is. Instead, smiling sadly, I lightly stroke her limp hand. So ungarish my display of affection, I might be the curate, not the son. The nurses, or whatever, have more sense. they know they're in a carry-on film. I'm playing it like it's Brief Encounter. Aren't you good, Lily? You've eaten all your mince. Now she's Lily, who's eaten all her mince and polished off her Arctic roll, and her eyes close, her mouth opens, and her head falls sideways on the pillow. She's a real card, is Lily. We always have a laugh. Her name's actually Lillian, I say primly. I know, but we call her Lily. The strip lights go on this winter afternoon, and I get ready to leave. I never come away, but I think this may be the last time I shall see her. And it's almost a superstition, therefore, that before I leave, I should make eye contact with her. But to make her see me is not easy. Sometimes it means bringing my head down, my cheek on the coverlet in order to intercept her eye line and obtrude on her gaze. In this absurd position, my head virtually in her lap, I say, "Goodbye, Mum, goodbye," trying as I say it, my head pressing into the candle wick to picture her with Dad. Getting no response, I kiss her and go to the door, looking back for what I always think will be the last time. What I want to see is her gazing lovingly after me, her eyes brimming with tears, or even just looking. But she's not noticed I've gone, and I might never have been in the room at all. I walk to the station. Just one more thing. When I learned to read, the only books we had access to was at the local library in Leeds. And libraries are being closed all over the place now, and the people who are going to suffer are children. And closing libraries is child abuse. It mustn't happen.
Well said, Alan Bennett.
Maybe we shall touch the happy isles and see the great Achilles whom we knew. Though much is taken, much abides. And though we are not now that strength which in old days moved earth and heaven, that which we are one equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and fate, but strong in will to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield.
Thanks a lot,
I never thought in my life anyone would say to me that you're on after Suggs. It's a dream come true, and I'm very pleased to be here. This is an excerpt from a letter written in a Bombay hotel room on July the 15th, 1990. It's from Dexter Mayhew to his good friend Emma Morley, and the only other thing you need to know is that while he's writing this, he's drunk. Since I started this letter, I've drunk 2 more beers, and so I'm ready to say this now. Here goes. Em, we've known each other for 5 or 6 years now, 2 years properly, as, you know, friends, which isn't that long, but I think I know a bit about you, and I think I know what your problem is, and be aware that I have a low 2-2 in anthropology, so I know what I'm talking about. If you don't know my theory, stop reading now. Good. Here it is. I think you're scared of being happy, Emma. I think you think that the natural way of things is for your life to be grim and grey and dour, and to hate your job, hate where you live, not to have success or money or, God forbid, a boyfriend. In fact, I'll go further and say that I think you actually get a kick out of being disappointed and underachieving because it's easier, isn't it? Failure and unhappiness is easier because you can make a joke out of it. Is this annoying you? I bet it is. Well, I've only just started. Em, I hate thinking of you sitting in that awful flat with the weird smells and noises and the overhead light bulbs, or sat in that laundrette. And by the way, there's no reason in this day and age why you should be using a laundrette. There's nothing cool or political about a laundrette. It's just depressing. I don't know, Em, You're young, you're practically a genius, and yet your idea of a good time is to treat yourself to a service wash. Well, I think you deserve more. You are smart and funny and kind, too kind if you ask me, and by far the cleverest person I know, and I'm drinking more beer here. Deep breath. You are also a very attractive woman, and more beer. Yes, I do mean sexy as well, although I feel a bit sick writing it down. Well, I'm not going to scribble it out because it's politically incorrect or because it is also true. You are gorgeous, you old hag, and if I could give you just one gift forever for the rest of your life, it would be this: confidence. I would give you the gift of confidence. Either that or a scented candle. I know from your letters and from seeing your one-woman show that you feel a little bit lost right now, a bit rudderless and oarless and aimless, but that's okay. That's all right, because we're all meant to be like that at 24. In fact, our whole generation is like that. I read an article about it. It's because we never fought in a war or watched too much telly or something. Anyway, the only people with oars and rudders and aims are bores and squares and careerists. I certainly don't have a master plan. I know you think I've got it all sorted out, but I haven't. I worry too. I just don't worry about housing benefit and the future of the Labour Party and where I'm going to be in 20 years' time and how Mr. Mandela is adjusting to freedom. So this is my big idea. And it might be insane, but I'm going to post this before I change my mind. Follow these simple instructions. 1. Leave that crappy job right now. Let them find someone else to melt cheese on tortilla chips for £2.20 an hour. Put a bottle of tequila in your bag and walk out the door. Think what that will feel like, Em. Walk out now. Just do it. 2. I also think you should leave that flat. Tilly's ripping you off, charging all that money for a room without a window. It isn't a box room, it's a box. 3. As soon as you've read this, go to the Student Travel Agency on Tottenham Court Road and book an open return flight to Delhi to arrive as near as possible to August the 1st, 2 weeks' time, which, in case you've forgotten, is my 25th birthday. The night before, get a train to Agra and stay in a cheap motel. Next morning, get up early and go to the Taj Mahal. Perhaps you've heard of it. It's a big white building named after that Indian restaurant on the Lothian Road. Have a look around, and at precisely 12 midday, you can stand directly under the centre of the dome with a red rose in one hand and a copy of Nicholas Nickleby in the other hand, and I will come and find you, Em. I will be carrying a white rose and my copy of Howard's End, and when I see you, I will throw it at your head. Isn't that the greatest plan you've ever heard in your life? I'm sorry if this letter has annoyed you. The main thing is that I think about you a lot, that's all. Dex and Em, Em and Dex. Come to India. Call me sentimental, but there's no one in the world that I'd like to see get dysentery more than you. Taj Mahal, 1st of August, 12 noon, I will find you. Love, your friend, Dexter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, David Nicholls. She's made the trip from her home in Canada, especially to be here tonight. She's a patron of World Book Night. She's going to be reading from her book, The Blind Assassin, which is one of the 25 titles. Ladies and gentlemen, here she is, Margaret Atwood.
This is a stupendous event. I can't believe you're all standing out there in the freezing cold. It's cold back there too. I'm reading from The Blind Assassin in a chapter in which a young pulp magazine fiction writer of the 1930s is beginning to seduce a young lady during a picnic in a park. His method of seduction is storytelling, and this is why you should all read a lot. If you are a male person, you will know a lot of stories to tell, and if you're a female person, you'll know when you've heard them before. What will it be then, he says? Dinner jackets and romance, or shipwrecks on a barren coast? You can have your pick. Jungles, tropical islands, mountains, or another dimension of space. That's what I'm good at. Another dimension of space, oh really? Don't scoff, it's a useful address. Anything you like can happen there. Spaceships and skin-tight uniforms, ray guns, Martians with the bodies of giant squids, that sort of thing. You choose, she says, you're the professional. How about a desert? I've always wanted to visit one, with an oasis, of course. Some date palms might be nice. She's tearing the crust off her sandwich. She doesn't like the crusts.
His mouth had been used as a latrine by some small creature of the night, and then as its mausoleum. During the night, too, he'd somehow been on a cross-country run, and then been expertly beaten up by secret police. He felt bad. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great evening, and it is recommended that you drink with moderation. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to read from Lolita by Nabokov. The first chapter. It's very short. Lolita, light of my life, fire of my loins, my sin, my soul, Lolita, the tip of the tongue taking a trip of 3 steps down the palate to tap at 3 on the teeth, Lolita. She was low, plain low in the morning, standing 4 feet 10 in one sock. She was Lola in slacks. She was Dolly at school. She was Dolores on the dotted line. But in my arms, she was always Lolita.
When I was a kid, I had very little indeed, very little. Except my mum always had books in the house, and vocabulary was my way out, and it came out through songwriting in my particular instance. But I'm so pleased to see this enthusiasm for the celebration of books, for sure. I'd like to read you a poem by John Betjeman. Yeah, I mean, John Betjeman is mostly known for kind of frippery and the girls in tennis outfits and all that. But he wrote this poem about the death of his father, who was deaf at the point of death. And it moved me quite a deal. One of my best friend's fathers was buried in Highgate Cemetery, where this takes place. Anyway, this is the poem, yeah. The kind old face, the egg-shaped head, the tie discreetly loud, the loosely fitting shooting clothes, a closely fitting shroud. He liked old city dining rooms, potatoes in their skin. But now his mouth is wide to let the London clay come in.
Now, if you see me shaking, it's not because I'm scared, it's because I'm freezing. Or maybe a little bit of both.
For the next 5 minutes, we are in West Berlin. That's not Big Ben behind me. That's the Brandenburg Gate, stuffed with barbed wire.
Sorry.
And that's not Whitehall, that's the Friedrichstrasse and the checkpoint from West Berlin to East Berlin.
Thank you so much for coming out and braving the cold to stand there and show us how much you love books, to show the world. We really appreciate it.
Lyra and the old man, Father Coram, are going to have a conversation with a bear.
I thought I wouldn't read from my own book because I'll probably pass into a kind of standing coma, having read it quite a lot. I mean, it's good and everything, but... I'm reading the first chapter from this book for 2 reasons. One, because it is absolutely fantastic. Beg, borrow, buy, or steal a copy. Second reason, a really good book does an absolutely extraordinary thing that nothing else in the world can do, which is give you instant, intimate access into the mind of another human being. Whether they've been dead for 2,000 years, whether they live on the other side of the world, or as in this case, whether they're people who have been pushed to the very margins of society. The kind of person who can be 6 feet away from you and remain completely invisible. I think a really good book is a little engine of empathy and compassion. Stuart was a homeless man living in Cambridge. We're standing here tonight near Martin-in-the-Fields, where the connection provides lots of services for homeless people. There'll be lots of homeless people in Trafalgar Square tonight. World Book Night is about giving and sharing things for free in a world that's obsessed with money and profit. Books like this are a celebration of empathy and compassion at a time when we're desperately short of both. Chapter 1.
Now, oddly, the next time this seems unlikely, but it's true, the next time you see them together will be in Captain America, the First Avenger. It's a big blockbuster coming out later in the year. But tonight, they're going to be reading some Cole Porter. Please welcome to Trafalgar Square, Hayley Atwell and Stanley Tucci.
When the little blue bird who has never said a word starts to sing spring, spring.
When the little bluebell at the bottom of the dell starts to ring, ding, ding.
When the little blue clerk in the middle of his work starts a tune to the moon up above.
It is nature, that is all.
Simply telling us to fall
In love.
Birds do it, bees do it, even educated fleas do it. Let's do it, let's fall in love.
In Spain, the best upper sets do it. Lithuanians and let's do it. Let's do it. Let's fall in love.
The Dutch in Old Amsterdam do it, not to mention the Finns.
Folks in Siam do it. Think of Siamese twins.
Some Argentines without means do it.
People say in Boston even beans do it.
Let's do it.
Let's fall in love.
Romantic sponges, they say, do it. Oysters down in Oyster Bay do it. Let's do it, let's fall in love.
Cold Cape Cod clams against their wish do it. Even lazy jellyfish do it. Let's do it. Let's fall in love.
Electric eels, I might add, do it, though it shocks them, I know.
Why ask if shad do it? Waiter, bring me shad roe.
In shallow shoals, English souls do it.
Goldfish in the privacy of bowls do it. Let's do it.
Let's fall in love.
The chimpanzees in the zoos do it. Some courageous kangaroos do it. Let's do it. Let's fall in love.
I'm sure giraffes on the sly do it. Even heavy hippopotami do it. Let's do it. Let's fall in love.
Old sloths who hang down from twigs do it, though the effort is great.
Sweet guinea pigs do it. Buy a couple and wait.
Penguins in flocks on the rocks do it. Even little cuckoos in their clocks do it.
Let's do it. Let's fall in love.